Good day, dear students. I am Chimidron Nikolaevich, the head of Human Anatomy Department in Samara State Medical University. Today I will talk about white matter of central nervous system. In details, we will talk about tracts and pathways of the central nervous system. So the white matter occupies the whole space between the gray matter of the cerebral cortex and basal ganglia in telencephalon. So it also be present in all the parts of central nervous system, in spinal cord, in medulla oblongata, in pons, in cerebellum, midbrain, and also in diencephalon or forebrain. So what does it mean, pathways or white matter? White matter are the fibers of neuron cells, and you may see in this picture that central nervous system pathways are the groups of nerve fibers that provide internal connections between the nuclei and cortical centers which serve for functional integration. And you may see several pathways in central nervous system, such are fibers, bundles, tracts, radiations, and commissures. And in details, we will talk about these pathways in central nervous system. So there are three following groups of pathways in central nervous system. Associative fibers, commissural fibers, and projection fibers. Three groups: association, commissural, and projection. So first we'll talk about association or associative fibers or pathways. And you may read that associative fibers, the most developed in the cerebral cortex, fibers who connecting different areas of the cerebral cortex of the same hemisphere, in left or in right hemisphere. And you may see that associative fibers divide in two groups, intercortical and extracortical. And also you may see that extracortical fibers divide into groups, two short and long fibers. So intercortical fibers are localized in cortex, but extracortical short and long fibers are localized in white matter of telencephalon or forebrain. And you may see these fibers here, long fibers and short fibers. You may see that short fibers here under my pointer will connect a neighbor gyri in the same hemisphere, and long fibers will connect the gyri of different lobes in same hemisphere. And you may see that superior longitudinal fasciculus connects frontal lobe with parietal lobe and occipital lobe. And also you may see inferior longitudinal fasciculus which connect temporal lobe and occipital lobe. Also you may see perpendicular fasciculus which connect parietal lobe with occipital lobe. And at last you may see on this picture cingulum which connects the parts of rhinencephalon, the most oldest part in central nervous system in filigentally light. And also you may see uncinate fasciculus, like hook shape, which connects frontal lobe with temporal lobe. You may see these pathways, and also you may read these pathways here. In number 2 you may see superior longitudinal fasciculus. In number 6 on a further picture, on low picture, you may see inferior longitudinal fasciculus, and also you may see number 1 uncinate fasciculus, which connects frontal lobe with parietal and temporal lobe. Also, you may see associative pathways in cerebellum. These pathways will connect parts of hemisphere in cerebellum between neighbor gyri in cerebellum, and also will connect the parts of cerebellum, of hemisphere in cerebellum, with vermis cerebelli. Also, you may see that associative pathways are present in brain stem, and these pathways connect the nuclei in one half of brain stem. And also these associative pathways are presented in spinal cord, and these pathways will connect the neighbor segments in spinal cord. And you may see under my pointer fascicular propria in spinal cord, which are associative pathways in spinal cord. Next pathways are commissural pathways, and you may read that commissural pathways or tracts or commissures provide connections between the symmetrical parts of the right and left halves of brain. And you may see, for example, the commissures in brain, in forebrain. The largest commissure is corpus callosum, and also you may read commissures: anterior cerebral commissure, posterior cerebral commissure, commissure of fornix, interthalamic adhesion, and habenular commissure. And on this picture you may see these commissures. You may see that this is one half of brain, a right half of brain. This is sagittal section, and you may see in number 1, this is corpus callosum, the greatest commissure in brain, and also you may see the parts of corpus callosum. In number 5, you may see lamina terminalis, which form the anterior wall of third ventricle in diencephalon, and also you may see that it passes to rostrum corporis callosum, to geno corporis callosum, also to corporis callosi trunk, and finished with splenium corporis callosum. They are all the parts of corporis callosum, the greatest commissure in brain. And also you may see number 6, this is anterior commissure, which connect some parts, some gyri of right and left temporal lobes. Also you may see posterior in number 21, posterior cerebral commissure, which also connect which also connects the parts of temporal bone, temporal lobes, the basic part of temporal lobes, right and left lobes. And also you may see in number 7 commissure between fornix, between columnar fornices, and also you may see it in under number 7 under my pointer, and commissure fornices will connect the parts of rhinencephalon from right and left side. And also in number 12 you may see interthalamic adhesion, which form connection between thalamuses, and it contain not only white matter, it also contains the gray matter between thalamuses in the encephalon. So you may read these commissure tracts here. I repeat, this is corpus callosum, the greatest commissure in the central nervous system. Also you may read anterior cerebral commissure, posterior cerebral commissure, commissure of fornix, interthalamic adhesion, and habenular commissure. Also you may see the corpus callosum here, and you may see that the fibers which passes to cortex from corpus callosum diverge in radiatio corporis callosi. And you may see at anterior part it forms forceps frontalis or forceps anterior, and in posterior part it forms forceps posterior. Also you may see cingulum. I told you about this associative pathway in right or in left telencephalon, left or right hemisphere. So you may also see the commissures here. In number 1 you may see corpus callosum, which connects the injury from right to left side, from right to left hemisphere. And also you may see commissure cerebri anterior, which connects symmetric parts of temporal lobes. On this picture you may see commissure cerebri anterior, and also you may see commissura fornicis, which connects the part of rhinencephalon, right and left parts of hippocampus, which form the medial wall of inferior horn of lateral ventricle. So next, third type of pathways of tracts in central nervous system are projective or projection path or projection fibers or tracts. So projection tracts provide links between spinal cord and brain, between nuclei of brain stem with basal ganglia and cerebral cortex, also between nuclei of brain stem with the cortex and cerebellar nuclei. And these tracts divide into group, ascending group or ascending tracts and descending tracts. Ascending is the same for sensitive tracts, and descending tracts, descending pathways, is the same of motor or effector tracts in central nervous system. So we talk about ascending tracts first, and you may read first group is exteroceptive tracts, which passes exteroceptive sensitivity from skin, sensory organs. Next group, next part, there are interoceptive sensitivity, interoceptive tracts, which passes the sensitivity from internal organs to cortex. And third group, third part, there are proprioceptive tracts, which passes proprioceptive sensitivity, condition, feedback from muscles and joints. So let's at first we will talk about pathways of superficial or epicritical sensitivity, which have projection in definitive cortical zone. This is gyrus postcentralis in temporal lobe and also lobulus parietalis superior in the same parietal lobe. So you may see there are two tracts, anterior spinothalamic tract, which passes the sensitivity from touching and pressure, and lateral spinothalamic tract, which pass the sensitive about temperature and pain. So you may see that first neuron of this pathway, of this tract, localized in spinal ganglia. This is sensitive neuron, and their axons go to the spinal cord, to gray matter, and transmit to second neuron, which is localized in posterior horn of gray matter in spinal cord, and it names nucleus proprius cornus posterioris. And you may see the localization of the second neuron here. And also you may see that it has a feature that the fibers of this second neuron, of this tract, cross the spinal cord to opposite side from right to left, for example, and goes in opposite side in anterior or lateral spinothalamic tract, in anterior or lateral funiculi. So if we talk about anterior spinothalamic tract, it goes in anterior funiculus, and if we talk about lateral spinothalamic tract, it goes in lateral funiculus. So the fibers go upward, and they go through medulla oblongata, through pons, through midbrain, and finished in lateral nuclei of thalamus, ventral lateral nuclei. So they transmitted to these nuclei, and the fibers of third nucleus or third neuron on this pathway, which are situated in ventrolateral nucleus of thalamus. All these fibers go to cortex of postcentral gyrus. Some fibers go to precentral cortex of frontal gyrus, but more fibers go to postcentral gyrus of parietal lobe, and also they go to lobulus parietalis superior, also in parietal lobe. Next, let's talk about pathways of protopathic sensitivity. You may read that there are extralimniscal pathways. They pass cross pain, non-specific temperature sensitive, gross touch and pressure. And they have a feature that these pathways come from all receptors to all parts of cortex. And you may see in details this pathway. First neuron is localized in spinal ganglia, and you may see that second neurons are the neurons of facial reticulation, and they transmit it to non-specific nuclei of thalamus, and after this the impulses go to cortex, to all the part of cortex, and you may read that they pass gross pain, non-specific temperature and gross touch and pressure to all the parts of cortex. So next we will talk about proprioceptive sensitivity, about condition of the musculoskeletal system, spatial orientation of body parts, coordination of movements. So this is conscious pathway, and there are two fasciculi in posterior funiculus of spinal cord, gracile fasciculus and cuneate fasciculus of medulla spinalis or spinal cord. And you may see that these two pathways, which passes information about musculoskeletal system, about condition of our joints and muscles. The gracile fasciculus passes information from low limbs, from low parts of trunk, and cuneate fasciculus passes information from superior part of body, from neck muscles, and also from upper limbs. So first neuron is localized in spinal ganglia. You may see on this picture under my pointer in number 1, and you may see that the fibers, the axons of these neurons go to white matter of funiculus posterior of spinal cord, and don't go to gray matter in spinal cord. So you may see that these fibers transmit to second neuron in medulla oblongata, and you may see these second neurons under my pointer. They are situated in two nuclei of medulla oblongata, nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus, and the fibers, the axons of these second neurons passes to opposite side of medulla oblongata, crossing from right side to left side, and the fibers go upward in limniscus medialis, through pons, through midbrain, and go to thalamus, and transmitted on the third neuron of ventrolateral nucleus of thalamus. And these neurons have axons which go to cortex of postcentral gyrus in parietal lobe, to precentral gyrus of frontal lobe, but more fibers go to postcentral gyrus of parietal lobe. Next, we will talk about unconscious sensitivity, and we will talk about two pathways which pass information about skeletal muscles, about joints, about capsules of joints to cerebellum. And you may see these two pathways on this picture. In letter A, you may see posterior spinocerebellar pathway or tract, and on the right picture, letter B, you may see the anterior spinocerebellar tract. So, first neuron is localized also in ganglion spinale, and the axons of these neurons go to gray matter of spinal cord to posterior horn and transmit it to thoracic thoracic nucleus of spinal cord. So the fibers of these neurons go in lateral funiculus on this side without crossing and go to medulla oblongata, and after this part of brainstem they go in cerebellar pedunculi, inferior cerebellar pedunculi to cortex of vermis, and on this part of cerebellum will localized the third neuron. So the anterior spinocerebellar tract contains three neurons too. First neuron is localized in spinal ganglia in number 8, and also you may see that axons go to posterior horn of gray matter in spinal cord and transmitted to second neuron which localized in nucleus intermedium medialis of spinal cord, and you may see that the more fibers of the second neuron of this tract, anterior spinocerebellar tract, passes to opposite side from right to left side and go in a lateral funiculus of spinal cord, fasciculus spinocerebralis anterior, through medulla oblongata, through pons, and also through midbrain, and go to cerebellum in superior pedunculi. But you may see that the fibers crossing to this side from right to left and form the superior anterior wall of fourth ventricle, which name velum medullare superius. Velum medullare superius is situated between two superior peduncles of cerebelli. And also you may see that these fibers finished and transmit to the third neurons, which is situated in the cortex of cerebelli in vermis cerebelli and also in hemispheres. So the interoceptive sensitivity you may see on this picture. You also must know that the pain or temperature sensation from internal organs passes through spinothalamic tracts and also through Golgi and Budahi tracts, or gracilis and cuneatus tracts. So let's talk about efferent pathways, about motor pathways or descent pathways. And first we'll talk about conscious pathways, which form pyramidal system, and there are two tracts, a pyramid tract and corticonuclear tract. You may see the centers in cortex of cerebri, when this tract will start. So you may see the precentral gyrus, you may see the lobulus parietalis inferior in parietal lobe, and also you may see the motor parts of frontal lobe in middle and inferior frontal gyri. So first let's talk about pyramid tract or corticospinal tract. There are two neurons on this tract, and first neuron is localized in cortex of precentral gyrus and postcentral gyrus, and also in lobulus parietalis inferior and middle and inferior frontal gyri. So these fibers from these neurons go through internal capsule, and they passes in pedunculus cerebri of midbrain, and also these fibers form the longitudinal fasciculus in pons, and also they form the pyramids of medulla oblongata. And you may see in number 6 that more fibers crossing to opposite side from left to right side and form the lateral corticospinal tract of lateral funiculus, and some part of fibers, less part, I think it may be 20% of fibers, go on this side and crossing on opposite side in spinal cord, and form the commissura spinalis anterior. So you may see that 100 fibers, 100% of these fibers transmitted on the opposite nucleus, motor nucleus of spinal cord. So this is conscious motor tract. And also you may see corticonuclear tract. First neuron is localized in cortex of precentral gyrus of frontal lobe. The fibers go through internal capsule, through canal of internal capsule, and you may see that tracts these fibers finished and transmit to motor nucleus, motor nuclei of cranial nerves. And you know that motor nuclei are in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th pairs of cranial nerves. And you may see that more fibers are transmitted to opposite nucleus, motor nucleus of cranial nerves. And some fibers will be transmitted to nucleus, motor nucleus of same side. And you may see these fibers here, the fibers from motor nucleus passes to skeletal muscles of face and neck. And you may see the reflex in damage, with damage of these fibers. So next we will talk about fibers of extrapyramidal system. You may read that involuntary automatic regulation of complex motor acts, muscle tone and manifestations of emotion. And so you may see the parts of gray matter uh, of extrapyramidal system. Basal nuclei in forebrain, medial nuclei of thalamus in diencephalon, subthalamic nucleus in diencephalon, red nucleus and substantia nigra in midbrain. And also you may see the white matter pathways connecting them with a motor nuclei of cranial nerves and spinal cord. Let's we talk about rubber spinal tract. It has two neurons. First neuron is localized in nucleus rubber of midbrain, and the axons passes to opposite side, crossing this part of midbrain and go to the motor nucleus of spinal cord. Next, you may see vestibulospinal tract, and you may see two nuclei of vestibular cranial nerve, vestibulocochlearis cranial nerve. It's nerve number 8, and also you may see that fibers passes on this side without crossing and transmit to motor nucleus of anterior horn in spinal cord. Next, you may see the fibers in cerebellum. You know that white matter of cerebellum appearance of small leaves of a plant which corresponded to each volume covered on the periphery by cortex of gray matter. So there are 3 peduncles. I told you about this: superior, middle and inferior peduncles, and these connections are between cerebellum and midbrain in superior cerebellar peduncles, with pons in medial cerebellum or intermediate cerebellum peduncles, and with medulla oblongata with inferior cerebellum peduncles. So next, you may see the connections between limbic system, and you know that limbic system is functional union of brain structures involved in the organization of emotional, motivational behavior, such search of food, sexual behavior, defensive instincts, wake, sleep cycle. And you may see the white matter and pathways in limbic system, and you may see the structures of limbic system and pathways between them. You may see hippocampus, also you may see crura hippocampi and fornix, calamnifornices, corporomammillaria of hypothalamic area in diencephalon, mammillothalamic pathway to anterior nuclei of thalamus, and also you may see the pathways from anterior nucleus of thalamus under gray matter of gyrus singuli to hippocampus, to hippocampus. All of these pathways are the pathways of limbic system. So I think that my lecture will help you to understand the function of neural system, and I agree that you will know these functions good, and I repeat that all these neural fibers connect the neural cells between each of them. So thank you for your attention. Good luck. See you again. Bye bye.